I'm Friedrich Wilhelm Rudolf Gerhard Augustin von Steuben. I was born in September 1730. My parents, Elizabeth Maria Justina Dorothea von Jagoda, and Wilhelm Augustin von Steuben. I was born in the fortress town of Magdeburg in the Kingdom of Prussia. My dad was in the Prussian army, and I joined the Prussian army, following my father's footsteps when I was 17. I quickly gained second lieutenant, and then I was a first lieutenant when I was promoted in 1759. I later got taken prisoner when my general surrendered to the Russian army. When I got out, I was promoted to captain and made my way to America. I fought for the Confederate side in the Revolutionary War and turned a militia of no one to a team of professionally trained soldiers. We won many battles while losing some too. At first we didn't win very many, but then later on we came out to win more battles and then finally ended up winning the war. We fought through tough storms and winters and lost many good men, but in the end the war was ours. We finally had freedom from Great Britain. They really thought that their fancy red coats wouldn't make them an easy target, but it was very easy to hit them with their bright red coats they used.
I'm James Monroe, the 5th President of the United States. Here are some more facts about me. I was born on April 28, 1758, in Westmoreland County, Virginia, to Spencer and Elizabeth Jones Monroe. When I was 18, I was battling for the colonists in the American Revolution when I got hit in the shoulder by a musket ball. It would have stayed in my shoulder the rest of my life. I once studied law with Thomas Jefferson at William and Mary University. In 1817, many years later, I was elected as the 5th President of the United States of America. I would go on as president to acquire Florida from the Spain, get re-elected, and then in 1825 I decided I was too old to go for re-election. In 1803, many years back, I helped negotiate the Louisiana Purchase, which helped us gain a lot more land. But in 1831, I tragically passed away in New York City.
I am Mercia Desmorn. I was born on September 14, 1728. When I was 9, I started to learn with my brothers. I am a pamphleteer and political playwright. I was the 3rd woman to have a published book of poems. I am a main reason you know so much about the Revolutionary War, because I wrote History of the Rise, Progress, and Termination of the American Revolution. I am married to James Warren, whom my older brother went to college with. We had 5 sons, named Winslow, Charles, George, Henry, and James Warren. Sadly, I died on October 19, 1850.
Hello there, I'm Phyllis Wheatley. I was born in West Africa in 1753. I don't remember much about my homeland, for I was taken away on a slave ship at 7 years old. When I arrived in Boston Harbor, I was officially property of the Wheatley family. They didn't know my first name, so they named me after the ship I arrived in, the Phyllis. Although I didn't know it at the time, I was being used as a test to see if people of color were actually capable of learning to read and write, which not many people in the colonies were able to do anyways. So they taught me, and I mastered English, Greek, and Latin within 6 months of living in the colonies. After that, I began writing poetry. After the Wheatleys noticed this, they wanted my first volume of poetry published. I was soon emancipated. This means I was no longer a slave. As a poet, it was hard to support myself, so I still sold myself out to work in the fields. I later married the very black man, John Peters, and he financially supported me in my work.
I was born December 17, 1760. I lived with my mother and father, and my father abandoned me when I was 5 years old. My mom went to live with other family members with me, but they sent me off to work as a servant because they were poor. I worked there till I was 18, learning how to weave, farm, and I self-educated myself and was a teacher during the summers. I came back from being a servant and I decided that I would join the American Revolutionary War. I knew that I looked a lot like a man, especially because I got bullied for it. I joined the army the first time, but they didn't let me in because I was holding a quill pen just like a woman. The next time, I succeeded. I fought my first battle in New York and got injured with 2 musket balls piercing my legs. I didn't want anyone to find out I was a woman, so I refused medical treatment. I got one out with a penknife, but the other one stayed in my leg forever. Then I fought another battle, but I got sick with a fever, so the doctors found out who I was. The general also found out, but kept it a secret and gave me an honorable discharge. I was served in the Army for 17 months. I married Benjamin Gannett and had 3 children. No one would give me the money I deserved because they found out I was a woman. And I wouldn't get the fair pay for fighting. Then, Paul Revere heard of my case and helped me get the money I deserved. I died April 29, 1827.
I was born in 1759 and I joined the military at 17. I moved up the ranks till I took General Thomas Gage's spot. In 1777, I defeated George Washington's troops and I took Philadelphia. Also in 1777, I lost the Battle of Saratoga. Burglary said it was all my fault, so eventually Parliament opened up an investigation. I resigned as general and I became advisory of King George III. Also, when my brother died, I became William Howe, 5th Viscount of Howe, a member of the British aristocracy.
It is your beloved King George III. I was born June 4th, 1738 in London, England. I was born a prince as my grandfather was King George II and my father was the Prince of Wales. I was taught by private tutors and I love to learn. I can read and write in English and German. When I was 18, I was offered to live at St. James Palace, but as the humble person I was, I said no. When I was 22, I became king and got married to Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz. I was happily married and had 15 children, those little rascals. I was the King of Great Britain during the Revolutionary War. The war was caused by Parliament and the colonists were upset about the taxes and blah blah blah. After 8 hard, long years, I lost the war. A treaty was signed by Great Britain granting independence of the colonies. Even though I lost the revolution, I like to think of myself as a smart, heroic key figure to the war.
Hi, I'm Paul Revere, and I was born on January 1st, 1735. I was the 3rd of 12 children in my family. My father was a silversmith and I dropped out of school to become his apprentice. When he died, I took over the silver shop. I married my first wife, Sarah Orne, in 1757 and I had 8 children. After she died, I married Rachel Walker and had 8 more children. I had 16 children in total. Then I became one of the Sons of Liberty. As one of the Sons of Liberty, I attended the Boston Tea Party. I'm famous for the Midnight Ride on April 18th, 1775, when I warned the people that the British were coming by riding a horse through the streets of Boston. I became a lieutenant colonel of artillery in 1772.
Hi, I'm John Hancock. I was born in 1737 in Braintree, Massachusetts. I was raised by my uncle Thomas Hancock. My uncle was a very wealthy man. He was a merchant who owned a lucrative shipping business. Lucrative means it made a lot of profit. His company was called the House of Hancock. It was a company that helped Great Britain manufacture goods and exported rum, whale oil, and fish. Enough about my uncle. I mean, you came here John Hancock, right? Anyway, when my uncle sadly died, I got all the money he earned, and with that, I helped the movement of American independence, raise money for the revolution, and help secure troops. And of course, I took over his business. A while later, when I turned 39, I signed the Declaration of Independence, and that day I knew I'd be making history, but I made 2 historical moments. So it turns out my signature was the biggest on the Declaration of Independence. So to this day, people say, "Can I get your John Hancock?" instead of saying, "Can I have your signature?" So I made 2 histories somehow. Later, when I was around 48, I was elected to be in the Second Continental Congress, and at the same time becoming the president of it. And after all that fun, in 1777, I quit and got out of the Second Continental Congress. Soon later, I died in 1793, well known I lived a long, happy life. And before I go, to the parents, I'm John Hancock, not Herbie.
I was a man in the American Revolution. If you know who I am, one of the things that you know is that I'm a proud patriot. I felt that King George was raising the taxes and it cost too much and it needed to come to a stop. When he started raising taxes, Stamp Act of 1765, the Innocent Liberty tried to get the British soldiers out of our colonies and wilderness. 1770, after the Boston Massacre, I tried to get messages all across the colonies for me and all the Sons of Liberty and other patriots. Before reaching the U.S. Boston Tea Party, I gave a speech, and me and the others put on some outfits and dressed up like Bob Martin. Ran onto the boat and raised my shoes talking over the waters. After that, King George III still made his pay for Boston Tea. Months after that, I was chosen to represent Massachusetts in the Continental Congress. Congress agreed to write a letter in protest to King George. Yet he did not listen, so at that point all of us were ready for the revolution. It came a year later. At that night at Lexington and Concord, Paul Revere saved my life along with Hancock. Since he wasn't there, everyone had known to hide and avoid the soldiers. In 1776, I was one of the declaration
independence along with a few others like Thomas Jefferson and Lincoln. The war did end in 1783, spent most of my time in Massachusetts. I became a great governor and was a senator, lieutenant governor, and a state governor. Thank you for listening to my life and revolutionary book today.
My name is John Dickinson. I was born in 1732, November 13th, in Talbot County. I was known as the penman of the Revolution. I was known for this because of my letters from Farmer in Pennsylvania, which were published in 1767 and 1768. I was a speaker of the Delaware Assembly in 1760 and a member of the Pennsylvania Assembly in 1762 and 1765. In 1770, I married Mary Norris and had 4 children: Isaac, Sarah, Mary, and Maria. In 1781, I became the president of Delaware, which is basically a fancy word for governor. And in 1782, I was the president of Pennsylvania. I died in 1808 in Wilmington, Delaware. And as I once said, united we stand, divided we fall.
I am Martha Washington. I was born on June 2nd, 1731 in Chesapeake, Virginia. I am the oldest of 8 children. My first marriage was at age 18 when I married Daniel Parker Custis. Sadly, after only 7 years of marriage, he passed away. I was left to manage the land and money and raise the kids by myself. But unfortunately, 2 of them passed away when they were toddlers. When I was 27, I married George Washington, who became commander of the American military forces. He depended heavily on me for emotional support. When he was away at battle, I would often visit the camp and notice how hard the soldiers were working and how much help they needed. I worked with a group of women and we raised money for the soldiers to get them supplies. I also donated $20,000 of my own money, which would be $414,000 in 2023. To help the soldiers even more, I knitted them clothing and visited them in the hospital. When I was home during the war, George's cousin and I managed the estate at Mount Vernon. In 1789, George was officially elected the first president of the United States, and I was the first First Lady from 1789 to 1797. Unfortunately, 2 years later, in 1799, George passed away and I was too heartbroken to attend his funeral. I died in 1802. I am Martha Washington.
I'm Thomas Paine. I'm a journalist and a writer, and an American revolutionary hero. I was born 1737 in Thetford, England. I met Benjamin Franklin in 1774, who helped me move to America. In America, I wrote many papers titled Common Sense, Age of Reason, American Crisis, and Rights of Man. These papers showed that Americans should be free from England. Did you know more people read my papers than people watch the Super Bowl today? I believed that Americans should be free from England but not have a war. I helped other people realize that Americans should be free from England. That's why I'm an American revolutionary hero.
Hi, I'm Charles Townsend, and I was born in 1725 in London, England. To this, I was the second son of Viscount Townsend. I was a very sick boy as a kid, and I had a lot of seizures. My family was related to many noble families and important men in politics. My dad divorced my mom and would always talk bad about her. My dad also always criticized me, which I didn't like. I went to school at Cambridge, then went to law school at Leiden. I married a woman named Caroline in 1755. I wanted her since she had connections with very powerful nobles. I was elected to Parliament when I was 22. One of my famous speeches is the Champagne speech. It's called that because I was drunk at the time. I gave that speech in 1767, which is the year I died. I died September 2nd, 1760.
1751 on a tobacco farm in Colonies, Virginia. When I was young, I liked to stay inside and read. I was a very smart child. I left home at the age of 18 to go to college at Princeton University. After college, I was a colonel in Orange County Militia from 1775 to 1776. From 1780 to 1783, I participated in the Virginia Constitution Convention and eventually became a politician after meeting Thomas Jefferson. In May 1787, delegates from each state came together to meet at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, and I was able to present my ideas for an effective government system in my Virginia plan. In 1788, I became the last person to sign the United States Constitution. In 1794, I married my wife, Dolly. She was amazing to me. Then, in 1808, I was elected the 4th President of the United States, which I held for 2 terms until 1817. Despite the challenges I encountered during my presidency, I was respected as a great thinker, communicator, and statesman. After being president, I was the rector of the University of Virginia before dying at the age of 85
on June 28, 1836 from heart failure. I am buried in Montpelier.
I am Lord Cornwallis. I served in the Revolutionary War as British general. My dad died after I decided to join the British side in hope of action in the 7 Years' War. After some action in the war, I then took my dad's spot in the House of Lords. I won an early battle in the Revolutionary War. After many losses, our army had few people. We were waiting for reinforcements when the Americans attacked. I surrendered at the Battle of Yorktown in 1781. I helped in many other countries and many other wars. I was loyal to whoever was in charge of me, which was mostly the British. Their uniform is a red coat, black boots, and a chest belt. That is the reason they are called the Redcoats. The problem with our redcoats is that it made us easy to see in the muddy terrain. I changed my name many times. I am now Charles Cornwallis.
I am Mary Ludwig Hazel, or you could call me Molly Pitcher. I got the name Molly Pitcher because, well, I carried pitchers to a war, and second, most people with the name Mary are called Molly. And when I was 13, my father had died. He was a butler, but at the same age, I got married after a while, and it was sad, but I loved my husband so much that I followed him out to war to know if he was okay. And when the battle started, I didn't know where he was or what was happening, but the only thing I could hear was, "Water, water." So I ran to the river and I grabbed a pitcher and filled it up with water and started to give it to men to drink. And after that, I saw my husband on the ground in need of water, and I gave him the pitcher. And I fired, and then there was a cannon. Because he was supposed to be firing the cannon, I took control of the cannon and started firing them. And even the cannonballs were really heavy, so Molly Pitcher was very, very strong. And after war, her husband had died because of battle wounds, and she had a son and cared for children after that.
I was born on July 27, 1742 in Potawatomi, Rhode Island. I was one of the generals of the Continental Army in the Revolutionary War. I was so good that I was called George Washington's best general of all the lands. I am also known to be successful in command of the southern region in war. Born into a Quaker family in Warwick, Rhode Island, I was part of the colonial enemy to British guidelines in the early 1770s. I also helped establish the Kentish Guards. In 1774, I married a 19-year-old girl named Catherine Littlefield. She was a niece of a distant cousin of mine. We had 7 children together. After the April 1775 Battle of Lexington and Concord, the legislature of Rhode Island established an army and asked for me to command it. In October 1780, George Washington made me the commander of the Continental Army in the southern region. After several battles, I resigned as commander and returned to Newport. I had a lot of debt, so I relocated to the south to focus on the plantations I was awarded during the war. I became ill on June 12, 1786 and died 7 days later. I died from sunstroke and was only 43 years old.
Hi, I am Abigail Adams. Some of you may know me. I am the wife of the second president, the First Lady. Anyway, I was born November 22nd, 1744. I was born with the name Abigail Smith. As a young girl, I always had different opinions. Because I could not go to school, my mom taught me how to read and write. I did not like being treated like this, so you might say I took action. Well, yes, I kinda did. I used my words. I met John from my friend. We were great friends and soon got married on October 25th, 1763. Since John was far away, we sent letters to each other. And over the years, we sent 1,000 letters to each other. When he was away, I was alone with my kids, but I got through. Sadly, I died October 28, 1818. I did not see my son, John Quincy Adams, become president, but I did live a happy life.
Third President of the United States and author of the Declaration of Independence. I was born April 13, 1743. My father died when I was 11, and I took over a huge estate at 21. I got interested in law after that, then huge rich was. I got put with John Adams and Ben Franklin to write the Declaration. We won our freedom. In 1801, I was elected president. I married Martha Skelton and had 10 amazing kids. I died July 4th, 1826, hours before my friend John Adams. Thank you.
I'm Marquis de Lafayette, or Mary Joseph Paul use Rochester de Monte de Lafayette. You can just call me Lafayette though. I'm personally very proud of my name, by the way. Anyway, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in France and the year was 1757. I was immediately very wealthy. I even had a castle in my name. So that's the beginning. But there's more. My father died while fighting when I was only 2. I can hardly remember him. And then, of course, my mother died when I was 13. Perfect. But after these deaths, I decided I wanted to continue what my whole family had done, fight. And it just so happens that the American Revolution was taking place. I took a chance, and then I was in. I was fighting. Me and Washington also grew to be friends. And then I was promoted to commander, just in time for the Battle of Yorktown. And we won. We won the war. That was a happy day. Then I got back to France. After all, I had a wife. I also fought in the French Revolution. I thought that our people should have power and a chance. I did a lot. I wrote letters and tried to help in big ways, but in the end, I had to leave France, and it got worse. My wife was put into prison, and some of my relatives would have been executed. I mean, what did I do wrong? After all this, I quit my food act, even I need breaks. After this crazy life, I got the nickname Hero of Two Worlds, and it screams me, don't you think? I mean, I am not bad.
Hi, I'm Ethan Allen. I was born in Litchfield, Connecticut, 1738. I volunteered for service in the French and Indian War. I am most famous for being an American Revolutionary War hero and patriot. I joined and led the Green Mountain Boys in protecting the land. In May 1775, I brought the Green Mountain Boys to help capture Fort Ticonderoga in New York from the British. I co-led the raiding party with Benedict Arnold. When the commander saw me, Arnold, and all of our men, he handed over his sword and surrendered without any violence to anyone on either side being done. My second revolutionary effort did not go quite as well. In September 1775, I led an army to gain control of Montreal and was not successful. I was captured by the British. I was put on a ship and sent to England, where I was treated very badly in my prison in Cornwall for 2 years. The king decided to exchange me for British soldiers and commanders that had been captured by the colonists. I was put back on a ship and returned to New York City. I served as a colonel in the Continental Army upon returning to North America. I am known as Father Vermont since I was one of the original founders. I assisted the tiny nation in its ongoing dispute for control over the territory with New York. I tried to persuade the Continental Congress to accept Vermont as a 14th state. But because of disputes over the territory, the Congress refused. In my lifetime, I worked as a farmer, businessman, land speculator, philosopher, writer, American Revolutionary War patriot, and politician. I died at the age of 50 after losing my first wife and oldest daughter, remarrying, and having 3 more children by my second wife. I died at my home in Burlington, Vermont, which was part of the original grant land I purchased. I never saw Vermont admitted to the United States as the first state that was not an original colony. I hope to be considered the father of Vermont due to the efforts to make it free.
Hello, my name is John Paul Jones. I was born on July 6, 1747. My parents were John Paul and Jane McDonald. I grew up in Scotland. Later on, I became very interested in sailing. I began taking several jobs to work on ships, such as the King George or the Friendship. These boats were slave ships. I quit these jobs very quickly. After I became captain of the ship Betsy of London and made good money, but one day I had to leave. I had gotten into a fight with a crew member of the ship and slayed him with this sword. If anyone knew my identity, I could have gone to jail, so I changed my name from John Paul to John Paul Jones. Later in my life, I began to triumph over British ships until I died. I died in 1792 in Paris, France. I am best known for taking over the ship named the Serapis in 1779. I am John Paul Jones, the great man who took a big impact on the American Revolution and the U.S. Navy.
My name is John Jay. I was born December 12, 1745 in New York. When I was born, I had 9 older brothers. My dad is a wealthy man. He is a fur, lumber, and meat trader. I was taught by my mom until I was about 8. Then I went to New York. I stayed there for about 3 years, then I went back to being taught by my mom. In 1760, I went to Eton's College.
I met lots of people who would randomly influence my future. I'm best known for signing the Treaty of Paris. It was also signed by John Adams, Henry Lawrence, and Benjamin Franklin. I signed the treaty on September 3rd, 1783, and that marked the end of the Revolutionary War. I am also known for being one of the 4 founding fathers. I started out to be called by a lawyer and soon became a member of the New York Committee of Correspondence. In 1771, I went to establish my own legal practice. In 1774, I attended the First Continental Congress. Following independence, I drafted the Constitution of New York. Even though I had once been a slaveholder myself, I adopted an anti-slavery approach later on.
Hello, I am George Washington Adams, General and President. On June 14, 1775, I was assigned commander of the Continental Army. I was never prepared to lead a big army on the field. In 1754, I committed 400 people to victory at Fort Necessity. Me and the Continental Army barely escaped the whole destruction of the New York campaign in 1776. I moved my army successfully to Manhattan on the night of August 29th to 30th, 1776. There's 9,000 people. I traveled across the Delaware River twice in December 1776. I was fearing a counterattack from the British, so I hurried my soldiers back to the Pennsylvania side. My supplies were running out, and one of my work challenges to help them by declaring the raise taxes to help out. Mount Vernon escaped destruction in 1781. I stopped the military operation, and the greatest display of power was the surrender of power.
Hello, my name is Benjamin Franklin. I was born on January 17, 1706. I sadly died on April 17, 1790. I'm an American printer, publisher, author, inventor, scientist, and diplomat. I also served the Second Continental Congress and helped draft the Declaration of Independence. And my family. My father, Joseph Franklin, he lasted to 1657 to 1752. He was married 2 times and has 17 children. My mother was Alba Fowler. She lasted to 1667 to 1752. I also negotiated the 1783 Treaty of Paris that ended the Revolutionary War. My formal education was limited, but ended at the age 10. I hope you had a good time listening.
Hi, I'm John Adams. I was born in 1735 in Massachusetts. I had 2 brothers, Peter and Elihu, who were both soldiers in the Revolutionary War. I attended Harvard College at age 16. When I was 29, I married Abigail Adams. I was a member of the Continental Congress, the Commissioner to France, the Ambassador to the Dutch Republic, and to Great Britain, and I signed the Treaty of Paris. I was impatient about the slow pace of declaring our independence from Great Britain. I was Vice President under George Washington from 1789 to 1797. And was the second president from 1797 to 1801. I was the first president to live in the White House. On my deathbed, my final words were, Thomas Jefferson still survives. Only for others to realize he died 5 hours early